sound sciences, and that sound is mathematics. So
resonant frequency, absolutely.
Sonic geometry that aligns with sacred geometry and etc. So she said, I'm working out as I listen. Okay. All right, Stacy. And I trademarked this protocol called audiopharmacology.
Yeah.
So how it came about was I have a long history in music. I started off as a DJ and then went into musicianship. And then I stumbled upon Qigong, meditation, and yoga. So after Qigong and learning about the influences of energy inside of the organs and the bioelectromagnetic field and the electromagnetic field, I wanted to align everything I did to that Qi. So that entailed finding the frequencies for organs, for DNA, for planets, for literally everything.
Do you think I introduced people by accident? Come on.
100%.
We're banging drums, right? And we're trying to get people to get on the train and start working, not just sit down, but right, like get involved. I have to take. I'm gonna before we get into the show. First, I want to thank Shannon and Kevin for coming on the show, Mental Health Mondays. It's a blessing we come on. We're going to do this every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And, California doesn't count as a real time. So I'm not even going to mention Kevin's time. But thank you, Kevin, for taking the time out of your day and bringing this and being a family man and doing the thing. Because I know you just got home, bring your daughter home from school, right?
Yeah. So the 3 o'clock was the tight one because she gets out right at 3. And so we're back like 3:25, 3:30. So I'm really excited that the time worked for you. Yeah. Stoked it all aligned. And it is. It's that dance. Like, it's like my wife and I like, oh, who's got what? What's going where? So,
as we talk about mental health, Shannon and I, we've been doing the shows like this together, and he's been busy and you've been busy. But I really want to get in this today about combining the sound with the frequency of the healing that you do, Kevin, and actually explain the line that touches it all, right? So we're going to actually talk about anger, right? Anger is probably the most overwhelming thing people have. And people say, well, I don't get angry. No, that's not true. If you bite your lip or you frown or cringe, those are expressions of anger. Whether you say you're angry or not, you like, and here's what's funny, right, Shannon? They all do it. I'm just a little bit upset. Well, what does that mean? I mean, like, if you're upset, it's still anger. You can put another frosting on the saying or whatever you want. Oh, I'm annoyed. Anger. So I'm a little bit perturbed. All those little small things, it's still anger. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to ask Shannon to go first about how anger resonates in the body, right? And then Kevin, I'm going to go and how it affects how you are living your life. See that? So Shannon, if you can go first, and again, you can listen to this show on iHeart, iTunes Radio, wherever you get you can listen to it live now, YouTube, and get it later, or inboxes if you have any questions. And I know we talked about this last time, Kevin, that sometimes we talk over people's heads. But today I don't care. I really don't. And they're going to have to just ask the question.
When do you ever care, Paul? He said today he doesn't care. Yeah, okay. No. Sorry, keep going.
It's true. Going. I mean, I don't, because you said this before. I mean, I just don't. I think people just got to learn how to ask the question. Like, I didn't understand that, and that's great because there is a line, there is an understanding, there is a science, and there is a healing process to this. So, Shannon, you want to talk about anger and how and where it resonates in that body, and just go from there on that perspective.
So, real quick, Shannon, not to jump in, but Paul, I wanted to make sure if you're recording, it doesn't look like we might be. So I just want to.
We are.
Okay, good.
Oh, I got you.
I didn't see it, so I was like, wait, are we?
Yeah, I'm all over it. I got all this stuff going on.
Oh, it is recording?
Oh, yeah. I'll send it to you. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So when we talk about anger, according to the traditional Chinese medicine system, for those who are unfamiliar with that, you might have heard of acupuncture, and you've heard of Kung Fu, right? So Kung Fu comes out of one of the pillars of traditional Chinese medicine, or Qigong. And what they have been doing for centuries is studying the effects of energy, emotions, foods, practically everything, seasons, colors, different sensations via the senses. And it's a plethora of things, how they affect the body and how that in return, which is the bio part, right? The electromagnetic field, and how that in turn affects the environment, the universe, right? So when they refer to anger, anger is stored in the liver. So when you are experiencing anger, what happens is it is not only stored in the liver, it causes stagnation within the liver. So the liver functions begin to be compromised just from that feeling of anger if you don't transmute it. So in regards to what I do is I map most of my things out to the traditional Chinese medicine system. So when I'm dealing with someone's emotions that are dealing with anger, which also they use the color green. I know in the chakra system, green is for the heart, but in the traditional Chinese medicine system, green is for anger. I map out the emotional body with the physical body, which entails in Qigong, they say the Yi controls the Qi. So the mind controls the energy flow. So I do that to transmute the energy that comes up with anger. I know we often talk about brain science. I'm not going to get into that right now because I know that's going to come up later. But as far as anger, it's stored in the liver of the body. Mm-hmm.
Now, when it is stored in the liver, now that's so. Explain what the liver does, and then we're going to move right into Kevin, and then that's really the segue. Shannon, you want to tell what the liver does?
Well, the primary functions of the liver is your filtration system. So a lot of livers are compromised because, different things. You've heard of people who drink too much alcohol, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What happens is not only the alcohol that damages the liver, but we have to look at what alcohol does. It dehydrates the body, right? So if you have a dehydrated liver, then your toxins in the liver can't move through the liver, right? So now that's being stored there. And what happens is when they talk about traditional Chinese medicine, they make a claim that if we experience people who are like angry all the time and bitter, it's not that they are bad people or, we have colorful names to call them and French names, but it says that they have an imbalance in the body. And if they was to fix that imbalance, including the mind, because it's how you process emotions, right? It's how you're interpreting the root causes, the triggers for your anger. And that's important as well. But it's stated that means that person needs to work. That's an indicator that there's a liver imbalance. So you either need to, you heard of yin and yang, some people say yang, you need to balance that liver meridian system. And then now you're balancing your emotions.
When you've done frequency work and you're using your singing bowls and different sound waves to help with different sicknesses in the body to harmonize, how is that triggering that liver to release those toxins that it's holding?
So when I do sound, therapies, mm-hmm. I use different ways I use different approaches. Let me say that. That's a better way of saying it. So I use a sound bed. Then I am also using a sound pod. And then I'm also using, you'll see the clients with headphones on, right? So it looks like you just see somebody just laying down with all this stuff on them, right? And you're like, what's going on? But there's different systems I'm working. So this is a great question you're asking. The first thing before I can get any type of response or homeostasis effect within the body, it starts with the mind, the yi, right? The yi controls the chi. So the headphones is playing a regiment that I have to the different energy organ systems. And based upon the diagnosis of the client, that is what gets chosen and what I induce them with first. So that causes them to relax, and it causes subliminally, because, no one's going to say, oh, that's a liver track. They don't know what they're listening to, right? So it's causing them to relax, but also introduce the frequency into the body via the mind, right? So then if there's tuning forks, the pods, the tables, singing bowls, I also use photonic light therapies, and I also use bioelectromagnetic lasers. So when I'm approaching the body, the physical body, I'm using vibroacoustics. Mm-hmm. So my approach is to introduce to the body once it's relaxed. That's very important because your body puts up resistance, right?
It creates this electromagnetic field that actually can repel things. Mm-hmm. Hence the anger issue.
Exactly. So, that's a nice thing I can piggyback on. So if you're angry, my thing is to calm you down. Mm-hmm. So long story short, the headphones is doing that part, right? So now that you're calm, now I can resonate the body. Mm-hmm. The different organ systems following the 5-element theory system. It's interesting because it's the Pentagon. It's like the star. And a lot of people, I remember teaching this workshop with families, and I brought it up, and it has, the organs around here, and then it has like the reciprocal energies and how they connect. So it comes out to this 5-star, and then it has, you have like creation and destruction energies that's going around in a circle. And they looked at that, they were like, as soon as I brought it up, and they were like, oh no. And it was a Spanish speaking crowd. So they were like, oh no, demonic. And right. I was just like, oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah. In the regular world, they think this stuff is like,
bad. We'll just say that.
Yeah, but it's just symbology. It was just showing the connections. But if you looked at it, it had that symbol, right?
Yeah.
So I had to really get them into trusting me, because that was the beginning of the class, right? Oh, and I was just like, I think I'm gonna have to use better slides next time. I didn't choose the best one this time. And that I have plenty of those slides, but that one showed it
so vividly.
Yeah. So I was just like, let me use this one, but I think I'm gonna take that one out of the slide deck and just use another one. But anyway. Back to the story. When you said there's a resistance that happens within the body. So say, for instance, if your body's in fight or flight, right? Mm-hmm. As I'm treating you. So you don't know what I'm about to do to you, right? Most people don't know about sound therapies. So there's a kind of they're kind of hesitant, like what's going to happen? I lay on this table, you have me blindfolded. There's these heated rocks and all this stuff under me. What's going on? What's going to happen? So especially when you blindfold someone, they have to trust you. So
or they're very nervous. They're very nervous already.
Yeah. So that music usually puts them to sleep. So they end up snoring or something on the table. But from there, once I have the body, in a trusting state, right? I find that you can resonate the vibroacoustics better because when the body's in its kind of repair, rebuild, restore. So like nap time and your body's just comfortable. Yeah. So from there, now I'm moving the pod into particular areas of the organs or muscles or whatever joints, if they're having issues with those. But also the table, there are certain patterns that are going on throughout the 4 quadrants of the body that I'm resonating to enhance it. And then, the tuning forks and all these other additional things. Basically, what I find with sound is it takes you out of the mind and it actually stops, or it transcends time. So if I was to play something from back in the 70s or 80s, we instantly remember when we saw that. Yeah. We can remember when we danced to it. It stops time and say, we're back there. So what I try to do is enhance that experience from doing the immersive, entrainment of the imagination, causing the neural ensembles and things like that to imagine them being in a sacred place that's not on my table. Or even, how some people want to get away from the world.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm creating that. And then with that, now I'm invited in to like resonate the body. So the body can say, oh, this is the resonance frequency of the liver. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm supposed to be resonating at. Right. And then it starts from there. That's all I'm doing. Your body does the work. I'm just introducing the frequency to it to say, oh yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm way, I'm too high or too low. And I don't want to get too far off track, but like you said, that's safe space. And just think how many people don't live in a safe space in their own body and mind. It's horrific how we are living outside of this fear-based and anger phase. So let's go right into Kevin, right? About when we're talking about clearing that from what Shannon was talking about. I know you're beaming. You're so excited. I can tell. So take it away, Kevin. How it now goes into the effects of what Shannon has done to clear this liver, right? Because we're only talking about anger. We can, but then go ahead, Kevin, go.
I'm just sitting here like gleefully, like just everything literally Shannon you said is that parallels the work that I do. Okay. And I'm sitting here like just screaming yes on the inside. I'm like doing jumping jacks or cartwheels on the inside. With anger being stored in the liver, when we experience it, it's not isolated to the liver. It's a full system, whole body experience of anger. And it's almost like the dragon that comes out and consumes the body. And then once the anger settles, then it retreats and retracts.
Especially because it filters blood. If it starts filtering the red blood cells that comes into the body. So all that's also getting damaged, or it's not getting filtered well enough because of the liver not functioning at its proper balance and its proper frequency. So go ahead, yeah.
Completely. And to Shannon's point, when we're in fight, flight, freeze, it's batten down the hatches, all hands on deck, all of the commissary shut down. Our system's in battle stations. So to the point about the blood, our blood constricts to the torso. The flow just in fight, flight, freeze is restricted because it's pumping, it's everything to the heart. We got to go. So right off the bat, when we're in reaction, when we're in resistance, when we're in anger, we're already out of balance. We're already in this state of internal dis-ease. And so, I mean, to Shannon's point, we have to get the system back to a semblance of balance or stasis in order to move anything, because otherwise we're bound up, we're locked up. So with something like anger, the one question that always drove me through life and that it drives me with problem solving with clients is yes and. All right, you're feeling angry. What's underneath that anger? What's triggering or causing, or what are the conditions or the programs that are running at the subconscious within the system, at the cellular level, liver, everything connected, everything being in play. Why is there anger in the first place? And some of it can be, well, the world is what it is, and okay, there's a lot of attention and a lot of focus going on to things going on around me. Or it could be, you know what, I don't know, my dad was an angry guy and I caught beatings when I was little, and I just have this anger inside of me. I think it's something from him. And so the way I approach it is literally identical, but in a different capacity. So it's very difficult and challenging to work with someone when they are in resistance. So getting them back to balance. So my version of the earphones and the relaxed environment, one of them is something called a whole brain or a hookup posture. And they teach it in brain gym, in some elementaries and Montessori's. Yep. Unfortunately, not as widely shared in corporate America, because I think every single one of us, one, could utilize it. And two, it'd be pretty funny to see everybody in an office just with crossed legs and crossed arms, disrupting that electromagnetic resonance of fight, flight, freeze, and maybe getting a little bit more internal space than just a few minutes before. So,
because what you're doing with that whole, you're actually bringing coherence back.
Absolutely.
So that's where that release comes in, and now that safe space. Again, back to that safe space or the natural space that we are actually, because it's not safe. We are all always are in this according to nature. We take ourselves out of it against nature. So go ahead.
Yeah, and this little side note, I think that's part of the challenge is because we are removed from nature. And if you look at a gazelle, if a gazelle is being chased by a lion or a cheetah, they are in fight, flight, freeze. They're going, they're surviving.
Not the Red Bull commercial, because I've seen that.
Right. Exactly. This is more of that Richard Attenborough, right. The nature. So, but what you don't see is a gazelle a week later talking to their friends. Oh my, dude, did you see what happened last week? That thing almost got me. Oh my gosh. Oh.
That's so true.
Because it's in the system.
Yeah.
And so if there isn't a threat, then there just isn't a threat.
Right.
If there is a threat, act. And so we've conditioned ourselves collectively and individually to this place of there can always be a threat. There's always a danger. There could always be something. And so it's multifaceted, and it's almost like the tributaries going into the Mississippi of fear, where there are a ton of different things: genealogy, family history, life experiences, media, social media.
I think you said it, though. It's conditioned. I think it's conditioned. And I want to add how, so when we talk about releasing that conscious ability, like why is there anger, right? Let's get into that underlining code, because now I have my anger released by Shannon. I have to now understand why there is anger. And now the connection is one of the things that flows into that body that connects both of the things, that vagus nerve, right? Mm-hmm. That vagus nerve comes from that second brain that we've all called the gut, right? The stomach. But then that liver filters into, that's that travel that Shannon was talking about, the cycle, right? So you go from that liver into that stomach, and that vagus nerve attaches all the way up down the spine and into, right, the base of the brain, up into the ganglia, and then now into where you were talking about. And so as you're listening, people, that's why our bodies are so amazing. We're not separated from an action or from a thought or from a sickness or from a healing. There's a process that everyone's enjoying. It's the amusement park for all of us, right? Right? You just don't go to amusement park and like, I'm only going to have fun and you guys suck, right? We all have fun in an amusement park. Or if it rains and there's tons of damage, we all get sick in the amusement park. Pick or choose your park, right? Yeah. So that vagus nerve is connecting those signals. And we know that the heart, because that vagus nerve is attached to that heart, it sends more signals up than it does the brain sends down.
Yeah.
You want to go back to that signal transfer and how it goes into the frequency, Shannon. Now talk about the level of frequency of the earth frequency and how the body resonates with that.
Yeah, well, both of you all had discussed some amazing points. When we're talking about nature, I just got back from 5 weeks in the jungle doing some field recordings for these new what I call mind relaxers, and I started doing research on what is it that makes nature feels like a safe space, and found some interesting things. Can I share my screen?
Absolutely, please. Oh, here, let me allow. How I'm going to, hold on. How do I allow? No, that's not it. Security reaction apps.
I think I should be good.
You good?
There it is.
There it is.
Boom.
Look at you.
Okay, so let me move the screen. So, and remind you, every time I'm talking about something, I'm giving a relationship to frequency. So there's nothing that I don't discuss or believe that exists that doesn't have an energy resonance to it. So in this chart here, you can see it, right? Let me move this. All right. So this talks about the stress and annoyance and the health and positive effects of the frequencies that nature puts out.
Correct.
So these are things the human, the Homo sapien, have been experiencing since their existence on Earth. And it's stated that animals have been here way before that. Okay. And these are your natural sounds. So when we talk about safe spaces, I often include nature. And what I'm finding that our understanding of what pure nature is actually just like, if you want to say, genetically modified organisms or now and laters or pop. So when you talk about city planning or metropolis, because around the world now, you know, it's still a lot of rural areas, but majority of the humans don't live in rural areas. No. They live in cities. So when they do city development, there is someone who states that a certain particular part of the city has to be what they quote unquote call green space. Mm-hmm. And we were like, yes, we have a park in our neighborhood. But I'm going to talk about how that is actually kind of a contradiction of what nature is. It's not really natural.
Right.
So in your green space, you know, I would ask people to close their eyes and think about, like, what's in your park? It might have a man or woman-made lake. Yep. Lake's not natural. Nope. Then it'll have a fake water fountain.
Plastic bench.
Right. It'll have some of them will even have like bird feeders because birds won't even come there unless they gave them food. Now, the biggest thing I want people to realize is I see a lot of people who are scared. I don't know if you saw those pictures I put up with those big, huge spiders. It was the size of my hand. In the jungle.
I did see it. Yeah. I love it.
People were freaking out over that. So okay. Now what I'm realizing is even when we go to forest preserves, the green spaces we have in metropolitan cities and urban areas, even suburbs, don't really have animals in them. Your fox, like the most thing we talk about, well, a coyote came over here, you know, a deer, a bird. Most of the fauna is gone. Like if you go into the country, you're going to get way more variety of animals in that environment. And within that, I'm just not talking about the physical presence. No. I'm talking about the frequencies those animals bring.
So when you the frog. the frog, the bees.
Exactly.
I mean, if you go to a lake and you don't see a frog, you better run.
Exactly.
This is not healthy. How do you know? You see a frog?
Exactly. So I always have to tell people, I have family and friends who are scared of spiders. I'm like, don't kill them. Mm-mm. They are there to get rid of the mosquitoes. Let them do their job. Once they eat, they're good. Then, what I find is they'll set up in an area that's high traffic, just like a business person would do, right? Or a hunter. And once they're done, and most of the big ones I see, they start at night because the mosquitoes, the butterflies and things, they can't see the net at night. And then in the morning, you can take the net down, it's already gone. But to kill them is a little bit extreme. And they also contribute to the vibration of, nature. So when we have, I think the biggest thing that we've experienced over maybe the last decade, I don't even think it was that long, is the cicadas. That's really loud. You don't really hear crickets in the city. We don't have wasps, hardly any wasps. The bee population's been suffering, the butterfly population, bats, all different types of birds. We only have a few, variety of those. But I was researching on what frequencies those bring and why they make the human feel, calm, takes away stress, and it has a positive effect on the body. So when we talk about the earth, you asked me about the earth, I can't ignore this. This is a part of the earth.
This is part of the earth. This is part of that Schumann frequency.
Yeah. So we are a part of this frequency, but what I also find is when we go into nature, I can understand talking because the birds talk, right? You hear them talking, so we can talk. But I find that when I'm going into some forest reserves and somebody wants to bring a 1,000 watt sound system, banging the whole thing out, I'm just like, we're supposed to be out in nature, or even the choice to put most of your highways, and I know it's easier to put near water, right? Because there's no trees and all of that. But to put those loud highways near our beaches, where you have not only the smog from the fuel, but you have the noise pollution, which doesn't allow us to hear these frequencies that will reduce our stress and uplift our health instantly just from being in these quiet spaces.
And I'm not going to get too far in, but I want to say this on the record and why this is being recorded and pushed out live. It's done on purpose. They build these cities and these places on purpose so they could keep us in those states of unhealthy mess. This way, they control us in a different format. But go ahead, Shannon. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I won't be long-winded. I just want you to look at this chart and look at the red, which talks about stress and annoyance. And then look at the health and positive effects with the green. So when you see nature sounds versus noise, the fourth one down, look how high that stress and annoyance is when you get in that noise. Nature sounds versus no sound.
Right.
More nature sounds versus fewer. And you see it's nothing. And you get no stress. So those vibrations that are a part of, the earth are very important. And we can also talk about, there's earth frequencies and different frequencies that deal with ley lines and all these different types of energies. But we don't even have to go that deep. I just want to go to something simple. Birds, water, insects, and how do those affect us vibrationally?
So, Kevin, you can actually, as you see this, is great stuff. One of the things you probably notice is how people have a hard time getting into subconscious states if they have all these other noises that, right. You want to talk about that, Kevin?
And for me, it's one of those where the space is there to create it. It's up to us to do it. And so part of that is decoupling from, in life, it would be the need tos, the have tos, the shoulds,
the want to,
the want tos, and really carve out that space to, I guess it would start with recognition. Okay.
Yeah.
Just entertain the concept. Everything is energy, including frequency, including resonance, including sound, light is energy. It's all energy. And we are literally photon communicating at the cellular level through light. Light has frequency, light has resonance, light actually has sound if we listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to do a quick reset, you don't want to think too hard about it, go camping for a week in a tent without an RV. And your system will naturally realign with being bathed in all of these natural sounds and all of and the circadian rhythm gets smoothed out because we're rising and we're going more with the sun as opposed to artificial light. And then where Shannon was about to go, and I'll just tap in real quick, the electromagnetic frequency of the earth is right around 8 hertz. It's like 7.83, mm-hmm. which matches our alpha brain state.
Right.
Which is where we are creative, which is where we are imaginative, it's our relaxed presence state. So a multitude of benefits come from literally just being outside. If you have a park, do a park. Even better, get away from light pollution, get away from structure, get away from man-made things, and literally get into nature.
So when people ask me about meditation and deep meditation and going into that sub-state, right? When at 8 hertz is the basic to go to that higher state, right? That universal state to all things. Mm-hmm. There's a higher frequency we can get to, but you have to be so calm. And when that releases, people talk about runner's high, things like that. Your body starts to lift, and it just starts to rise, and it's the most beautiful thing ever. You do have to be in a protected space because it's very difficult for well-practiced people to come up and down. They kind of get lost and drift, and that's not good too because then they don't have that back connection on this. But so you have to make sure you do it in a safe space. I just want to put that out there.
And with an intentional process of entry into that space as well.
Right.
And how many of us, we've heard meditation. It's like, okay, go sit in a corner for 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe. We'll try that out. And how many of us are going straight into an attempt of meditation, carrying fight, flight, freeze into that experience?
Right.
Because to Shannon's point at the top of the conversation, we have not disrupted the resistance. We have not. So it's either resistance and attachment, resistance to what is, or attachment to what isn't, and with desired outcomes, or it's the conditioning and programming that really keep us subjugated, keep us suppressed from an easier traverse of the up and down. So the first thing I would recommend, if anyone is a practitioner of meditation, start with legs crossed, and then going back, not to belabor the point, but then go into, we're closing the circuit, we're closing the loop of disrupting whatever resonance frequency we're emanating, fear, anger, scarcity, low self-worth, feeling unloved or unlovable. To your point about what's behind anger, I'd say a majority of the time it's fear. And then what's right below fear? Scarcity. What's right below scarcity? I don't have enough. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not worthy. If we're like cutting to the quick and we're getting to the core, in the work that my wife Kelly and I do, almost to a person, we find those baseline layers of dis-ease are aspects of unloved or unlovable or unworthy and worthlessness. So when we boil it all down, we get to very similar expressions, but then from there, the spread or how it's expressed, that's where we get into the variety.
Shannon, when you get into a client and you're putting these frequencies on there, because with the work I do, you must get a lot of tearing and crying just a release. And I know for us, that's the most beautiful thing ever. But for them, they're shocked. I get it. And people who are listening to this and going to watch this and whatever, understand that that's part of the awakening. That's the real awakening. Not like, I'm aware. And that's what you didn't want to say before, like just being aware doesn't get you there. The awakening is that deep breath that just comes out after that cry, like, wow, I didn't, and you always get, I didn't know. And you're like, how would you know? You've never been here before. You've never been here before. How would you? So Shannon, we want to talk about some of those things that must just happen.
So to answer your question, yes, I have beautiful stories of people releasing tears.
Yeah.
My favorite one was I was doing this sound showers, similar to what they call sound baths, at this place called Journey to Wholeness. And this one lady had brought her husband, and she was like, we're gonna go here, and he's one of those guys. All right. So you can see he was just like, I don't do this yoga thing. I don't do this, it wasn't yoga, but he was like, I don't do this thing. So he purposely sat in the back of the room with her. And I was working on the lung frequency. And what I also do is align to particular days. I study what astrology and season and mix all these different things up. Yeah. So, but then for that particular time, it was lung season. So, and lung deals with breathing. And it never fails. There's two things that's going to happen if you're in a session with me and I'm doing lung. You're either going to start coughing. I get a lot of that, coughing, sneezing, because it's starting to release. Or some people cry. I'm not saying everybody does it, but there's usually somebody in a room that coughs during those frequencies. So at the end, he came up with his wife, and she was kind of shocked because he was in tears back there, but you could see he got finished crying. And he walked up and was, I don't want to say transformed. It was like, how you have a new experience, but you can't explain what just happened. But he didn't feel embarrassed and ashamed about it because everyone in the room was, we're all on the vibration in the room, right? We're sharing that energy. So she was saying, yeah, I'm glad I came here. I was telling him we need to come to this place for months and blah, blah, blah. And we finally came. And then he cut her off and he was like, yeah, thank you. I've been suffering from the loss of my dad for the last, I believe, 3 or 4 months is what he said. And he didn't process it correctly. He didn't know how. And I think his wife was seeing that. So she was like, let's go to these other things. Cause you going to the bar or watching football games, it's not going to do it. So he was like, this was the first time I got a vision of my father, and all of these different things came out and I couldn't hold it in. I had to let it out. And I've never had that happen before. And he was just perplexed.
The awakening.
But he was, how when you experience something that's transformative or experience that feels so different, but it feels good. It's like a good feeling that you've never had before. He had that type of vibration. And from there, I was just like, okay, definitely this frequency is going into the mix more often. Because after that, I was putting in, I was wondering why people would be coughing and things. Because I dwell in both realms. I'm super sciencey and I'm super esoteric organic-y. So I don't have this, well, it just works because it works. No, I kind of want to prove it and have test case studies. So I do a lot of that. So I tested that over time and it did it did release a lot of people's grief, or if they're having some immunity issues, it's going to bring up some stuff out of their system, whether it's, phlegm, crying, grieving. I've had people who got up and had to walk over to a different space in the room so they can sit into what was being released at that time. I hope I'm answering your question.
You did.
I just wanted to share that story in regards to the frequencies and how they touch people. But going back to what Kevin and Paul is saying, I never leave out everything. For me, on my journey, started back from meditation. Because if you're trying to do Qigong is a meditation. If you're trying to do business is a meditation. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. Some of your richest people in the world, they're doing meditation to call in the attraction of certain things. So it's what you're focusing on. What are you focusing on? And what I like about meditation, and I didn't mention this earlier, safe spaces, the safest space for us is inside of our body and our minds. Okay? So that's what meditation, you're playing inside of your body and mind, or you're relaxing, right? You have to have trust. When you are running away from the stillness of, I don't know what's going to come up. So many things come up, and when I'm just sitting and thinking, so I have to distract myself with outer body experiences. That's an indicator that there's either trauma or some triggers or things that are going on.
And I was going to mention that because when you said trust, it is not trust a thing, it's to trust all things. Mm-hmm. The body does not segregate. It does not know, they don't trust this, but they trust that. The body doesn't do that type of separation. So it doesn't matter, you trust 99 things, but if you mistrust one, it affects the 99. So people have to understand that to love is to love. Not, I love my brother, sister, cat, dog, and a friend. No, love means to love. Trust means to trust. And they say, well, what if trust is broken? That doesn't mean you cannot trust. You know what I mean? So be careful of, and I think that's where the world comes into play, when people are so much living in the world and not living within their whole self. Kevin, you want to add? You were going to say something to that.
And that's the challenge, is that it is a holistic and a connected system. Internally, between our conscious selves, our heart and our conscious mind, limbic system, autonomic nervous system, subconscious mind, body, it's all connected. And through resonance and really through unified field theory and quantum physics, we are connected to everyone and everything that we've ever come in contact with, whether we remember it or not. And so and this is something that comes up quite often for me with clients, is getting to that place of trust, which I would just add, trust equals intuition. And it's that self-trust that we get conditioned and programmed out of us at a very young age. No, listen to your mother and father. Oh, no, don't do it that way. You have to do it this way. Why? Well, it's the way I was learned. So I was taught, this is how you have to do it. Because it's the way it's been always been done, is one of the worst excuses I've ever heard in my life. It's like, no.
It's so true, and they use it so often. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! If that's your answer, then we need a new approach. So getting to that place of trust is a process, and it is a practice. And there's a multitude of tools that we can use to get there. Psychological kinesiology, self-muscle testing. Muscle testing is one avenue. Practicing just with ourselves and listening to that gut feeling instead of trying to explain or, justify our way away from that rationalize, exactly.
But we were taught that rationalization was taught like a survival tool, like we're supposed to use it every time we get a chance. Like rationalize it. Why do you get up to work? Because I got to work. I rationalize it. Why do you work here? Because they hired me. They rationalize it. I mean, it's just, why are you with this person? Because they like me. Do you like them? Rationalize. I mean.
and now we're pulling out macro. Now we're looking to the macro pendulum swing blending of basically European and Western influence on this current state of world history towards very cerebral. This is the only viewport through which we understand, we can quantify, we can control. There is no control. We don't even have control over this, let alone anything going on outside of us. And the way to gain control, it's oxymoronic, is to release all control and start being open and curious, start listening, and start feeling.
I want to let everybody know where they could get a hold of you, Shannon, and Kevin too, please. Before I go on to this next thing, before we close out, I want to share something that happened to me this weekend.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, sir. The website, best place is radicalenlightenment.com. Ton of tools, ton of resources, practices, one-on-one sessions, group sessions, practice series where we help to integrate a lot of these practices into our daily lives so that we can start getting the reins back on, our hands back on the wheel, I should say, of this vehicle. And so we can start living a more consciously directed, aware, intuitive life. So that's kind of what I'll volley it right back to you, Shannon.
Here is Shannon.
Yes.
All right. So you can get in touch with me at www.audiopharmacology, PHARMACOLOGY.com. I also have an Instagram under the same audio pharmacology moniker, also Facebook. So you can just type that in on most of the social media platforms besides Twitter and TikTok. And I'm there. What you can find are tools for meditation. I just released yesterday the Mind Relaxer series. So it's a subscriber series. You're going to get new mind relaxers per month. And I noticed people are into the construct of time. So I've managed to create a protocol that hacks time because it takes 21 minutes to, and when I say time, what people think is time. It takes 21 minutes to entrain the brain. Most people, when you tell them, hey, meditation, here's 33 minutes, 20, I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to sit still. I don't have time. So I've done it in 7 minutes. And I did this thing that causes the brain to focus in within that time. Also, there are classes I teach, meditation classes, Qigong, medical Qigong classes, and sound therapy classes. And then I offer the sound sessions that I talked about earlier. And then I do children play shops, which are very, very fun. And it might as well be adult play shops because every time I do it, the adults say we need to do it longer so we can come back and play. And they bring me back so the adults can play.
Well, adults need to learn how to play again.
Yeah, the inner child.
Right.
That's another topic we can talk about, on another show. It's that inner child is very important to our healing and our survival here on Earth.
Yeah. Next Monday, we're here again. So this weekend, I was down in Atlanta, and then I ended up taking my wife to Alabama because there's a museum there called the Legacy Museum. And if you have not heard of it, it's the Legacy Museum. It's about, it's the Equal Justice Initiative, and they put on this museum, and it's got 400 square feet of issues of our legacy in the United States, of enslavement to incarceration. And in the museum itself, there is lots of depictions that are in the walls and statues, and this is like one of them that is in the walls of this building. And it's probably the most powerful building I've ever been into that just brought me to my knees with so much pain. And my wife I was being doubled over by the energetic feeling of all the death that is being portrayed, talked about as informational, but it's hitting me, right? And when you talk about coughing, I couldn't breathe. But I knew I wanted to get through this. It's kind of like when I went through this Holocaust museum too. As I walked, my legs were getting so heavy. I was in so much physical pain. I had to start rocking and humming, right? Because I wanted to go through this, and all parts of the museum, they have about the lynching in America and the filming, and it's everywhere, right? It's in this section of all lynching in America and why, and the stories of the lynchings and stuff like that. And then another section, segregation in America and Reconstruction, and then all the evil pain that has happened. So this happened to me this weekend, and in this pain process, I'm allowing myself to just feel and cry and hold my stomach, because there's stuff that just wants to come out of me like poison, right? So I get out of the building, and water just comes out of me. Just fluid, right? And I sat down, I took my shoes off, I laid in the grass, because getting back that reconnection. But I did not want to feel it. It wasn't like I was trying to get rid of what I just felt, but I had to get rid of the poison that I felt because of all the screams I was hearing in my head, and just all of it, right? I was so feeling it so much, and it's a building of death. That's what it is. And it was the most incredible feeling I've ever been. And when I knew my friends were coming on, people, and I wanted to talk about anger, because I didn't get angry. I'm not angry about our history. I'm saddened that we have not come to terms with it. So I want to share that with you. Any thoughts before we take off?
Well, first, brother hug.
Yeah.
Second, when I'm seeing a lot of this, a lot of times there's groups, like I've had many of the feminine energies come to me and say, hey, you should do more for the guys. The guys don't have, things to process, and, if it doesn't, and I had to explain it. I said, I've tried many times to bring men in the room to have these discussions and to have these practices, right? And most of the time it's like, if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. But then trying to figure out a way to say, hey, if you don't have your health is your wealth. Mm-hmm. There's many stars and people who die young, and people go, oh man, they died before their time. But if you look at a lot of their behaviors, what is before your time?
Right.
And how easy they died before their time. And no offense, I know we get as sensitive and things like that, but what is that? Like, what is before their time? If we're not being conscious about what we're putting into our bodies, what we are using our senses towards, what we're seeing, what we're eating, what we're feeling, how we're feeling, the mental health, because this is about mental health. If you're not using the tools that Kevin is offering, that Dr. Paul Dyer is offering, that myself is offering, and there's tons of other people out there, these things, imagine, Paul, if you were to went in there without any Qigong meditation, you do boxing, you do a lot of different things. You do, nature walks. Imagine how traumatic that would have been. And not just for that first experience. I'm talking about the implant of that image into your mind, being replayed over and over and over and over again. Yeah. And I'll end there. Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin?
I would, to your point about the experience, I can't think of a more beautiful expression of your self in that experience. And we've talked today about balance, and we've talked today about expansion and evolution. And for me, what you shared is a beautiful illustration of an expression of balance. So everything we're talking about, and everything is really geared towards mental health, but everything we're talking about, we're not talking about it from an avoidant or I don't want to experience this standpoint. It's not about not experiencing. It's not about shutting doors on things. It's not about getting it all bottled up and just not expressing it. Finding balance for me is about being able to experience the high highs and the low lows, and also have the tools to come back to the middle way, which then enables us to experience both of those. But if we are overly attached to one or the other, then it's like the house of cards is falling down. So I can't think of a healthier way to have experienced that museum, which is so important to document, because we're still in this sweep it under the rug. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Oh, no. If I don't look at it, it's not there type of approach collectively within this country. Mm-hmm. So it's not that it's not that it's not there to avoid, just like anything we're dealing with on the inside, from family history, from life experiences. The more we avoid, the more intense it's going to start screaming at us through symptoms, mental, physical, spiritual, otherwise, until something gives.
Well, what's going to give is that, one, you're dying a spiritual death. The next, you're dying a soulful death. And then you're dying a mental death. And then you're going to do something so physical that you're going to get shot in this physical world, and that's going to cause a whole other death. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that is actually what's going on. And I know as we do these shows, we got to work backwards in a way before people get to the mental part, because we got to stop them from being so physically and microbursting. And then we got to stop them from maybe calm down to a calm state, like Shannon said, so they can start allowing themselves to receive. Because once they allow themselves to receive, as you said, Kevin, then they can release. And after they get to release, then they can start the healing. Right? So we're working backwards. For us, we work backwards because there's so much in the physical sense.
Yeah.
So keep the code every Monday, same bat channel, same bat time. Please. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for listening and watching, and thank you, two brothers, for doing all what you do, because we need it. I was so happy. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have a great night. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Bridges Live Presents Mental Health Mondays, and we love you. We care for you. Please be safe, be careful, and be compassionate. Thank you.
Bye.
Get home safe.
Paul. Thank you, Shannon.